one of my closest friends. We've been friends about 14 years, and we did everything together. I mean, you know, we traveled to Brazil together 3 times with groups. We had sex with hookers together. We did TV together. We did radio together. We toured together. He was just a very, very close friend.
Gotcha.
And, I loved him.
And professionally, you guys did some work together too.
Oh, yeah, all this. I mean, he was on my show Down and Dirty. We did 2 years of Tough Crowd together. Opie and Anthony show constantly. He was a staple on that show. We did a lot of professional things together as well.
Excellent.
You know, Patrice was just, he was always there. He was just like one of those guys that you see. We didn't go on the road together like this because he had lines and I had lines. But with festival shows all the time, he was just a part of my career. Like, you know, it was Patrice. It was just, it's incomprehensible to me, you know?
Now, something that the staple of like what we do in journalism is we try to explain to people just how devastating these things are, because no one will ever understand like the loss to the comedy community unless you are a devout, you know, comedy stand-up fan. Can you explain, like, you know, when you heard the news, like how you felt and how you were impacted by this?
Well, I got a call from Bob Kelly who told me Patrice had a stroke. It was, I guess, 7 or 8 hours after it happened, he was in the hospital. And I know so many people have died. Geraldo died recently, Mikey Stefano died recently, Richard Jennings shot himself. I'm sober for many, many years, so I know a lot of people that have died of AIDS. You know, as much as it hurts, you learn what the process is. So I was very, very devastated, but at first you're like, okay, it'll be okay. He'll be okay. So at first I was just kind of get to the hospital, see what's going on. It started to become very devastating, I would say a week in, when I realized that he probably was not going to come out of it. And I began to be terrified. I literally cried every night for a month. And I'm not exaggerating and being melodramatic. I really would think of him laying in that hospital, trapped in his body and not being able to move. And was he going to live like this? Like, it was claustrophobic. It was horrible to think of this great, loud, opinionated, brilliant guy just shut down, but thinking and feeling everything. It was terrible. And it was very sad. It was very, very sad. And the doctors wouldn't let anybody to the hospital to see him for a while because his blood pressure would kind of fluctuate. And they, you know, I went in to see him the day before Thanksgiving, and you know, it was hard, man. I talked to him though. I didn't talk at him. I talked to him. You know, he didn't respond or look at me. I think his eyes were closed. But it was no goodbyes, no bullshit, because, you know, you don't want people saying that to you when you're laying there. And I walked out and got very sad, but while I spoke to him, it was for him. It was like, I'm not here, you know. I had nothing I should have said to Patrice. We were very close. I know he loved me and respected me. He knows I loved and respected him. There's nothing I would do differently. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the grief, and everybody understands the grief. Picture somebody you love very much dying, whatever your relationship is.
How do you think that he would want to be remembered most? How do you want to remember him?
I remember him as a guy who was extremely challenging. Well, like I said on stage, he was impossible to dominate. He loved to challenge people. He loved to be challenged. He loved to debate, loved to argue, loved to just playfully bat ideas around. He loved to just discuss silly things like superheroes or who's the best movie. You know, I will probably remember him as the funniest, most interesting guy I've ever known. And he really was. And I'm not waxing poetic because he's dead. He really was as funny as all the comedians are going to tell you he was. I think he'd want to be remembered as brutally honest. And as a guy who never, ever was afraid to do what he thought was right. Like, he was never afraid to walk away from something if he would have his integrity intact. He gave up money. He walked away from shows. Sometimes he made the wrong decision. You know, he was dumb sometimes. He was too stubborn. But if he felt a certain way, He would never fucking compromise his integrity. And he never did. And he didn't just say it, he just did it. We're not going to use you. Okay. Don't. And he meant it. He fucking meant it. He would tell executives who deserved to be told off. He would tell them off. You fucking, look at you. What the fuck do you know about funny? And he meant it. And at times it was wrong. It was self-destructive. You know, we all have. But he just would not compromise himself. And there's something to be said for that man, because he never prostituted himself. Never.
Now, what personally, like you expressing your best friendship with him?
Close friends. He had other people he was close to. I don't want to sound like, again, there's nothing.
No, gotcha.
But we were, he was one of my close.
So, what's your favorite personal memory of him? Something you did, something you shared.
Couple of them. One, his laugh. Patrice's laugh was like when he could make you feel I turned out when he scowled at you, no one could make you feel worse, and no one could make you feel funnier than Patrice. Like when he laughed, because he didn't give up bullshit laughs to people. When you made him really laugh, it just made you feel like you were a funny person. It was really weird how important it was to make him laugh. And that laugh, when you see that, that's the guy I know. Not caustic, that laugh. And we had a few of those in our time together, those fucking amazing, childlike laughs. Once when we were laughing at our friend's feet, because he had bunions on both of his feet. And he walked in the room, we both looked at his feet, and we had a moment like that, like where you just, as a comedian, you make other people laugh, but you don't laugh like a kid anymore. A lot of times you become cynical. It's hard to be cynical with him when it came to shit like that.
Mm-hmm. You said tonight was the first night that you eulogized him on stage.
In a way, yeah, because I did perform once at the Cellar, but I couldn't. It was the night he died, but I didn't talk about it.
Is it cathartic at all to bring him up like that? Is it
sure.
a source of closure? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, you're talking about a guy that it's easy in a sense as a comedian because I'm used to talking. So we've been talking about him for a month, and we've been talking about him a lot in the last few days, having comedians come in. David Tell came into the show, Louis C.K., Colin and Bobby Kelly, and all these guys telling funny Patrice stories. It's very healing to be a comic and be able to even laugh at things. I could make fun of him. Like, we honored him by fucking acting the way we did when he was around. So it's very healing to behave like that because, I don't know how most people handle things, but comics, you laugh, you fuck with things. That's how you don't get crushed by them. So it's very healing to talk about him. Talking about him to the audience, I do more for them because I know that it's on their mind. Like, I didn't need to talk about him tonight because we talked about him on the air with people who knew him. Like, that's where it really means something to me is when I'm talking about him to people who I shared memories with him. That's where you're going to cry. Like Dane Cook was in today. It was very hard to not cry when we were talking because Dane knew him for 20 years. And here's a guy who loved him and I love him. And you know what I mean? When you're sharing things like that, even if it's on the radio, it's hard. On stage, it's just nice to talk about him, but you can detach a little bit on stage because you're performing. On the radio, you're not performing, you're just talking. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, true.
But it's very good.